Hello, this is Let's Talk About Myths, baby, and I am your host, Liv, here with another reading episode of the Odyssey. And, well, let's be honest, this week has been a week. The president threatened to annihilate an entire civilization, and nobody's stopping him. It's too much. And so I say all of that because I'm just going to read this one straight. I also only have, I think, maybe one question, and it's about just a later period of the Odyssey anyway that I need to answer. So please send in your questions for future Odyssey episodes, especially since now this episode we're going to finally reach our hero. And remember, heroes in the ancient Greek world and in its mythology really were people who went on these kinds of epic quests and did various things, but they are not meant to be inherently good or generally benevolent people. But we will meet our hero today, and so I'm hoping that elicits some interesting questions for you all. So please send those in either in the Spotify comments or via the website mythsbaby.com/questions. And so because I don't have any of those today, and also it is the first week of April 2026 if you're listening from the future. Anyway, in that case, I'm just gonna go ahead and just do this straight reading. We're gonna escape. We're gonna escape to ancient Greece today. I laugh because it's all the same. It's all the same over and over and over again. But at least Odysseus is far removed from our current lived reality. So just a reminder, in books 1 through 4, we have what is often called the Telemachy, which is the story of Telemachus, his little kind of quote-unquote hero's quest, which it isn't particularly heroic, but he does go on a nice little quest, and isn't that good for him? So up until now, Telemachus has shared with all of us what's going on in the palace at Ithaca, and then he has gone on his merry way with the help of Athena and trotted on down to Pylos and then Sparta to ask his father's best friends if they have any information about him. We left him in Sparta and with the suitors in Ithaca laying in wait. This is Homer's Odyssey, Book 5, translated by Ian Johnston and used with immense gratitude to Vancouver Island University and the translator. As dawn stirred from her bed beside Lord Tithonus, bringing light to eternal gods and mortal men, the gods were sitting in assembly, among them high thundering Zeus, whose power is supreme. Athena was reminding them of all the stories of Odysseus's troubles. She was concerned for him as he passed his days in nymph Calypso's home. Father Zeus, and you other blessed gods who live forever, let no sceptered king be prudent, kind, or gentle from now on, or think about his fate. Let him instead always be cruel and treat men viciously, since no one now has any memory of Lord Odysseus, who ruled his people and was a gentle father. Now he lies suffering extreme distress on that island where the nymph Calypso lives. She keeps him there by force, and he's unable to sail off and get back to his native land. He lacks a ship with oars and has no companions to send him out across the sea's broad back. And now some men are setting out to kill the son he loves as he sails home. The boy has gone to gather news about his father off to sacred Pylos and holy Sparta. Cloud-gatherer Zeus then answered her and said, "My child, what a speech has slipped the barrier of your teeth. Did you not come up with this plan yourself, so that Odysseus, once he made it home, could take out his revenge against those men? As for Telemachus, you should use your skill to get him to his native land unharmed. That's well within your power. The suitors will sail back in their ship without success." Zeus spoke and then instructed Hermes, his dear son. "Hermes, since in every other matter you are our herald, tell the fair-haired nymph my firm decision. The brave Odysseus is to get back home. He'll get no guidance from the gods or mortal men, but sail off on a raft of wood well lashed together. He'll suffer hardships, but in 20 days he'll reach the fertile land of Scheria, the territory of the Phaeacians, people closely connected with the gods. They will honor him with all their hearts, as if he were divine, then send him off back in a ship to his dear native land. They'll give him many gifts of bronze and gold and clothing too, a greater hoard of goods than Odysseus could ever win at Troy, even if he made it back safe and sound with his share of the loot they passed around. For that's how fate decrees he'll see his friends and reach his high-roofed house and native land." Once Zeus finished speaking, the killer of Argus, his messenger, obeyed him. At once he laced up on his feet these lovely golden ageless sandals which carry him as fast as stormy blasts of wind across the ocean seas and boundless tracts of land. He took with him the wand he uses to put to sleep or wake up the eyes of anyone he chooses. With this in hand, the mighty killer of Argus flew away, speeding high above Pieria, then leaping from the upper sky down to the sea. Across the waves he raced, just like a cormorant, a bird which hunts for fish down in the perilous gulfs below the restless sea, soaking his plumage in the brine. That's how Hermes rode the crowded waves. But when he reached the distant land, he rose up above the violet sea and moved in on shore until he came to an enormous cave, the home of the fair-haired nymph Calypso. He found her there, a huge fire blazing in her hearth. From far away, the smell of split cedar and burning sandalwood spread across the island. With her enchanting voice, Calypso sang inside the cave as she moved around back and forth before her loom. She was weaving with a golden shuttle. All around her in the cave, trees were in bloom, alder and sweet-smelling cypress and poplar too, with long-winged birds nesting in them, owls, hawks, and chattering sea crows, who spend their time out on the water. A garden vine, fully ripe and loaded with rich grapes, trailed through the hollow cave. From 4 fountains close to each other in a row, clear water streamed out in various directions, and all around soft meadows spread out in full bloom with fresh violets and parsley. Even a god who lives forever, coming there, would be amazed to gaze at it, and his heart would fill with pleasure. The killer of Argus, God's messenger, stood there, marveling at the sight. But after his spirit had contemplated all these things with wonder, he went inside the spacious cave, and Calypso, that lovely goddess, when she saw him face to face, was not ignorant of who he was, for the gods are not unknown to one another, even though the home of some immortal might be far away. But Hermes did not find Odysseus in the cave. That great-hearted man sat lamenting on the shore, just as before, breaking his heart with tears and groans, full of sorrow, as he looked out on the restless sea and wept. Calypso invited Hermes to sit down on a lustrous, shining chair. Then the lovely goddess questioned him. "Hermes, honored and welcome guest, why have you come here with your golden wand? You have not been a visitor before. Tell me what's on your mind. My heart desires to perform what you request, if I can, and if it's something fated to be done. But bear with me now so I can show you the hospitality I give my guests." After this speech, Calypso set out a table laden with ambrosia, then mixed red nectar. And so the messenger god, killer of Argus, ate and drank. When his meal was over and the food had comforted his heart, Hermes gave his answer, speaking to Calypso with these words. "You are a goddess, and you're asking me, a god, why I've come. Since you've questioned me, I will tell you the truth. Zeus told me to come here against my will, for who would volunteer to race across that huge expanse of sea, so gigantic it cannot be described? There's no town there where mortal men can offer sacrifice or choice gifts to the gods. But there's no way that any other god can override or shun the will of Aegis-bearing Zeus. He says that you have here with you a man more unfortunate than all the others, who fought 9 years around King Priam's city, which in the 10th year they destroyed and left to get back home. But on that voyage back they sinned against Athena, and she sent tall waves and dangerous winds against them. All his other noble comrades perished, but winds and waves still carried him ahead and brought him here. Now Zeus is telling you to send him off as soon as possible, for it is not ordained that he will die far from his friends. Instead, his fate decrees he'll see his family and make it home to his high-roofed house and native land. Hermes finished. Calypso, the lovely goddess, trembled as she replied to him. Her words had wings. The gods are cruel and far too jealous, more so than others. They are unhappy if goddesses make mortal men their partners, taking them to bed for sex. That's how it was when rose-fingered Dawn wanted Orion. You gods that live at ease were jealous of her, until golden-throned sacred Artemis came to Ortygia and murdered him with her gentle arrows. In the same way, when fair-haired Demeter was overcome with passion and had sex with Iasion in a thrice-plowed fallow field, soon enough Zeus heard of it and utterly destroyed him by throwing down his dazzling lightning bolt. Now, once again, you gods are envious because a mortal man lives here with me. I saved him when he was all by himself riding his ship's keel. His swift ship was smashed by a blow from Zeus's flaming lightning while in the middle of the wine-dark sea, where all his other brave companions died. Wind and waves brought him here. This is a man I cherished and looked after, and I said I would make him ageless and immortal for all days to come. But since there's no way another god can override the plans of Aegis-bearing Zeus or cancel them, let him be off across the restless seas, if Zeus has so commanded and decreed. But I'll have no part of escorting him away from here. I have no ships with oars, nor any crew to take him on his way across the broad back of the sea. But still, I can make sincere suggestions to him and keep nothing hidden, so he can reach his native land and get back safe and sound. Then the killer of Argus, Zeus's messenger, said to Calypso, "Yes, send him away. Think of Zeus's rage. He may get angry and make things hard for you in days to come." The killer of Argus, the god's great messenger, said these words and left. The regal nymph Calypso, once she heard Zeus's message, went away to find great-hearted Odysseus. She met him on the shore, sitting by the sea, his eyes always full of tears, because he was squandering his sweet life, mourning for his return. The nymph no longer gave him joy. At night he slept beside her in the hollow cave, as he was forced to do, not of his own free will, though she was keen enough. But in the daylight hours he'd sit down on the rocks along the beach, his heart straining with tears and groans and sorrow as he gazed through his tears over the restless sea. Moving up close to him, the lovely goddess spoke. "Poor man, spending no time grieving on this island, wasting your life away. My heart agrees. The time has come for me to send you off. So come now, cut long timbers with an axe and make a raft, a large one. Build a deck high upon it so it can carry you across the misty sea. I'll provision it with all the food and water and red wine you're going to need to satisfy your wants. I'll give you clothes and send a favoring wind blowing from your stern so you may reach your own native land unharmed, if the gods are willing, the ones who hold wide heaven, whose will and force are mightier than mine." Calypso finished her speech. Odysseus trembled, then replied to her. His words had wings. "Goddess, in all this you're planning something different. You don't want me to get home. When you tell me to go across that huge gulf of the sea, and in a raft, a harsh and dangerous trip. Not even swift, well-balanced ships get through when they enjoy fair winds from Zeus. Besides, without your consent, I'll never board a raft, not unless you, goddess, would undertake to swear a mighty oath on my behalf. You'll not come up with other devious plans to injure me." Odysseus finished speaking. Calypso, the lovely goddess, smiled, caressed him, and then replied by saying, You're a cunning man with no lack of wit, to even consider answering me like that. But let the earth stand as witness, and wide heaven above and flowing waters of the river Styx, the mightiest and most terrible oath the blessed gods can make. I will not plan any other injury against you. No, I'll think of things and give advice, as if I was scheming for my own advantage, if ever I should be in such distress. For my mind is just, and inside my chest there is no iron heart. It feels pity, just like your own. The beautiful goddess finished speaking, then quickly led him from the place. Odysseus followed in her footsteps. Man and goddess entered the hollow cave. He sat down in the chair Hermes had just risen from, and the nymph set out all kinds of food to eat and drink, the sort of things mortal human beings consume. She took a seat opposite godlike Odysseus, and her servants placed ambrosia and nectar right beside her. The two of them reached out to take the tasty food spread out in front of them. When they had had their fill of food and drink, beautiful Calypso was the first to speak. Nobly born son of Laertes, resourceful Odysseus, so you now wish to get back to your dear native land without delay, in spite of everything? I wish you well. If your heart recognized how much distress fate has in store for you before you reach your homeland, you'd stay here and keep this home with me. You'd never die, not even if you yearned to see your wife, the one you always long for every day. I can boast that I'm no worse than her in how I look or bear myself. It's wrong for mortal women to compete with gods in form and beauty. Resourceful Odysseus then answered her and said, Mighty goddess, do not be angry with me over this. I myself know very well Penelope, although intelligent, is not your match to look at, not in stature or in beauty. But she's a human being and you're a god. You'll never die or age, but still I wish every moment to get back to my home, to see the day of my return. And so, even if out there on the wine-dark sea some god breaks me apart, I will go on. The heart here in my chest is quite prepared to bear affliction. I've already had so many troubles, and I've worked so hard through waves and warfare. Let what's yet to come be added in with those. Odysseus finished. Then the sun went down and it grew dark. Both of them went in the inner chamber of the hollow cave and lay down there beside each other to make love. Okay, breaking in here to say, I know I said I didn't have any questions to answer, and I don't, but I did want to say that I find this whole bit about that Calypso goes through, I just find it so interesting, and like, it's obviously pretty problematic. The whole relationship with Odysseus is really interesting. Like, I get the sense that at the beginning, you know, he was keen and now he's like, no, I'm over it. And, you know, we respect that. But it's just the way Calypso talks about it. That's what's so weird. So she names off specifically Eos, Dawn, and then also Orion. I think it's Eos's relationship with Orion, somebody else's as well. But basically there are like 2 or 3 stories of goddesses sleeping with men, and they're usually rapey. Like, the goddesses are it's very assaulty for sure. And it's just so interesting to me because these are really the only examples we have of that happening at all. And it's so interesting to me that they conceptualize these goddesses as being, you know, similarly violent to the gods, because it doesn't, I don't know, it's interesting to me. Obviously, like, women are capable of anything, but like, it feels, they give them such like a masculine energy, I guess, because it's always the women. And like, is that masculine, or is that just the examples that we have? The idea that like the one doing the carrying off, doing the abducting, doing the assaulting, That's sad. Am I talking myself into a hole right now? Probably. I don't know. Obviously, this whole point is just it's just generally odd. Calypso herself too. You all heard the episode I did a few weeks back about this idea of like the word nymph, which I always find so yucky, but then simultaneously, as I said with most of the other nymphs, or all of the other nymphs really, is that they are the victim, whereas here Calypso is the aggressor. And that's really interesting because simultaneously as Calypso is the aggressor here, she also, like, as far as I know, does not appear anywhere else. Like, her name may be scattered throughout, but like she as an overall goddess, I don't think was very common, and she didn't really have like a thing that she was goddess of, like, most other even nymphs do. It's just generally interesting to me because she feels like very invented in a way that many other mythological characters don't. And even her behavior, just, it's interesting, and especially in kind of conjunction with Circe, because as we'll see when we get there, like, Odysseus is more than happy to shack up with Circe. Like, it's gonna work for him. It absolutely serves the purpose, and he's happy there with her for like a year. And so we have that contrasted very much with Calypso, who's like, gives the impression that, like, he hasn't always hated being here. She'd rather him stay. She's like, you'd be happier with me, but whatever. And then at the same time, though, it's just always really interested me that she doesn't really appear elsewhere. And that's kind of true for so much of the Odyssey in this way, where I just kind of I want there to be more. I want there to be other stories of Calypso. Like, I want to understand her, let alone like their whole interactions. Like, there's like 7 years, and I would love to understand like where it started. He landed with her, and then they were 7 years together before we reached this point. And we know that he's like begging to go home. He wants to go home so bad. He thinks about it all the time. But what did happen in those 7 years? How long has he been feeling like this? Like, it's just, anyway, someone find that lost scroll of something that I actually don't even know if we think ever existed. As soon as rose-fingered early dawn appeared, Odysseus quickly put on a cloak and tunic, and the nymph dressed in a long, white, shining robe. Around her waist, she fixed a gorgeous golden belt and placed a veil high on her head. Then she gathered up the tools that brave Odysseus would need for his departure, handing him a huge axe, well suited to his grip, made of two-edged bronze with a finely crafted shaft of handsome olive wood. Next, she provided him a polished adze. Then she led him along a path down to the edges of the island where tall trees grew, alder, poplar, and pine that reached the upper sky. Well-seasoned, dried-out wood which would keep him afloat. Once she had shown the location of these trees, Calypso, the lovely goddess, returned to her home. Odysseus then began to cut the wood. He worked as quickly as he could and chopped down 20 trees. Using his bronze axe, he trimmed and deftly smoothed them, then lined them up. Calypso, that lovely goddess, brought him an auger so he could bore the timbers, fasten them to one another, and tighten them with pins and rope. Odysseus made a giant raft as wide as the broad hull of a large cargo ship, traced out by someone very skilled in carpentry. Then he worked to fasten the deck, attaching it onto the close-set timbers, and then finished it with extended gunwales. Next, he set up a mast with a yarn arm fastened to it, and then carved out a steering oar to guide the raft. From stem to stern, he wove a lattice of willow reeds reinforced with wood to protect him from the waves. Calypso, the enchanting goddess, brought him woven linen to make a sail, which he did very skillfully. On it, he tied bracing ropes and sheets and halyards. Then he levered the raft down to the shining sea. By the 4th day, he had completed all this work. So on the 5th, beautiful Calypso bathed him, dressed him in sweet-smelling clothes, and ordered him to leave her island. She had stowed on board the raft a sack full of dark wine and another large one filled with water, and a sack of food containing many tasty things for him to eat. She sent him a warm and favoring wind, and Lord Odysseus was happy as he set his sails to catch the breeze. He sat beside the steering oar and used his skill to guide the raft. Sleep did not fall across his eyelids as he watched the constellations, the Pleiades, the late-setting Boötes, and the Great Bear, which men call the Wain, always turning in one place, keeping watch over Orion, the only star that never takes a bath in ocean. Calypso, the lovely goddess, had told him to keep this star to his left as he moved across the sea. He sailed for 10 days on the water, then for 7 more, and on the 18th day shadowy hills appeared, where the land of the Phaeacians, like a large shield riding on the misty sea, lay very close to him. But at that moment the powerful earth shaker returning from the Ethiopians saw him from the distant mountain tops of the Selimi. Poseidon watched Odysseus sailing on the sea, and his spirit grew enraged. So he shook his head and spoke to his own heart. "Something's wrong. The gods must have changed what they were planning for Odysseus while I've been away among the Ethiopians. For now it's hard by the land of the Phaeacians, where he'll escape the great extremes of sorrow which have come over him. So fate ordains. But still, even now I think I'll push him so he gets his fill of troubles." Poseidon spoke. Then he drove the clouds together, seized his trident, and stirred up the sea. He brought on blasting tempests from every kind of wind, concealing land and sea with gloomy clouds, so darkness fell from heaven. East wind clashed with south wind, while west wind, in a rage, smashed into north wind, both in the upper sky pushing a massive wave. Odysseus's knees gave out, his spirit fell, and in great distress he cried out, addressing his great heart, "I'm facing a disaster! How is all this going to end up for me? I'm afraid everything the goddess said was true, when she claimed that out at sea, before I got back to my native land, I'd have my fill of troubles. And right now, all that is taking place. Just look how Zeus has covered the wide sky with clouds, stirred up the sea with howling blasts from different winds swooping down on me. My sheer destruction is now beyond all doubt. Oh, those Danaans 3 and 4 times blessed who perished back there in spacious Troy while doing a favor for the sons of Atreus. How I wish I died as well and met my fate that day, when companies of Trojans hurled at me their bronze-tipped spears as we battled it out around the corpse of Peleus' son. Then I'd have received my funeral rites, and Achaeans would have made me famous. But now I'm fated to be overwhelmed and die a piteous death." As he said these words, that massive wave charged at him with tremendous force, swirled round the raft, and then from high above crashed down. Odysseus let go his grip on the steering oar and fell out, a long way from the raft. Ferocious gusts of howling winds snapped the mast off in the middle. The sail and yardarms dropped away down in the sea some distance off. For many moments he was held under the water. He found it impossible to rise above the power of that mighty wave, because the clothes he'd got from beautiful Calypso dragged him down. But finally he reached the surface, spitting tart salt water from his mouth as it streamed down from his head. But even so, though badly shaken, he did not forget about the raft. Through the waves he swam up, grabbed hold, and crouched down in the middle, trying to escape destructive fate. The huge wave carried him along its course this way and that, just as in autumn north wind sweeps the thistle down along the plain and the tufts bunch together. That's how the winds then blasted his raft to and fro across the stormy sea. Sometimes south wind would toss it over to north wind to carry, at other times east wind would allow west wind to lead the chase. Then Ino, with the lovely ankles, noticed him. Cadmus's child, once a mortal being who could speak, but now, deep in the sea, she was Leucothea, and had her share of recognition from the gods. She felt pity for Odysseus as he suffered in such perilous distress. She rose up from the waves like a seagull on the wing, climbed onto the raft, and spoke to him, saying, "You poor wretch, why do you put Earthshaker Poseidon in such a furious temper, so that he keeps stirring up all this trouble for you? No matter what he wants, he won't kill you. It seems to me you've got a clever mind, so do just what I say. Take off these clothes and jump out of the raft. Drift with the winds, but paddle with your hands and try to reach the land of the Phaeacians, where fate says you will be rescued. Come on, take this veil, it's from the gods, and tie it round your chest. Then there's no fear you'll suffer anything or die. But when your hand can grab the shore, then take it off and throw it far from land into the wine-dark sea and turn away." The goddess said this, handed him the veil, and left, diving like a sea bird down in the heaving sea. A dark wave swallowed her. Resourceful Odysseus, who had endured so much, considered what to do, speaking in great distress to his courageous heart. "I'm in trouble. I hope none of the gods is weaving dangers for me once again with this advice of hers to leave the raft. Well, I won't follow what she says, not yet, for I can see with my own eyes how far that land is where she said I would be saved. So I will do what now seems best to me. As long as these raft timbers hold in place, I'll stay here and bear whatever happens. But once the waves have smashed my raft apart, I'll swim for it. There is no better way." As his mind and heart were thinking about these things, Earthshaker Poseidon set the seas in motion, with a monstrous, menacing, and terrifying wave arching high above his head, and drove it at him. Just as a storm wind scatters dry straw in a heap, blowing pieces here and there in all directions, that's how that huge wave split the long planks on the raft. But while straddling aboard as if astride a horse, Odysseus stripped away the clothing he'd received from fair Calypso. He wound the veil across his chest, and then, with arms outstretched, fell face first into the sea, trying to swim. The mighty shaker of the earth saw him, shook his head, and then spoke to his own heart. "So now, after suffering so much anguish, keep roaming on the sea until you meet a people raised by Zeus. Still, I don't think you'll be laughing at the troubles still in store." With these words, Poseidon lashed his fine-maned horses and left for Aegae, where he has his splendid home. Then Athena, Zeus's daughter, thought of something. She blocked off the pathways of every wind but one, and ordered all of them to stop and check their force, then roused the swift north wind and broke the waves in front, so that divinely born Odysseus might yet meet the people of Phaeacia, men who love the oar, avoiding death and fates. So for 2 days and nights he floated on the ocean waves. His heart was filled with countless thoughts of death. But when the fair-haired dawn gave rise at last to the 3rd day, the wind died down, the sea grew calm and still. Odysseus was raised up by a large swell, and as he quickly looked ahead, he could see the land close by. Just as young children rejoice to see life in a father who lies sick, in savage pain throughout a lengthy, wasting illness, with a malicious god afflicting him, and then, to their delight, the gods release him from disease, that is how Odysseus rejoiced when he could see the land and forests. He swam on ahead, eager to set foot on the shore, but when he came in closer, as far as man's voice can carry when he shouts, he heard the crashing of the sea against the rocks, huge waves with a dreadful roar smashing on dry land and foaming clouds of spray concealing everything. There were no harbors fit for ships to ride or coves, but jutting headlands, cliffs, and boulders. At that point, Odysseus felt both his knees and spirit give way, and in despair he spoke to his great heart. "What's this? Great Zeus has given me a glimpse of land just when I'd lost hope, and I've made my way, cutting across this gulf, but I can't find a place where I can leave this cold, gray sea. There's an outer rim of jagged boulders where waves come crashing on them with a roar. The rock face rises sheer. The water there is deep. There's no way to gain a foothold and escape my death. If I try to land, a huge wave may pick me up and smash me on those protruding rocks, and my attempt would be quite useless. But if I keep swimming and hope I'll find a sloping beach somewhere or havens from the sea, then I'm afraid the stormy winds will grab me once again and carry me, for all my heavy groans, across the fish-filled seas. Or else some god may set some monstrous creature of the sea against me. Illustrious Amphitrite raises many beasts like that. I know well the rage the great Earth-shaker feels for me. As he debated in his mind and heart like this, a huge wave carried him toward the rocky shore. His skin would have been ripped and all his bones smashed up, but the goddess with the gleaming eyes, Athena, put a thought inside his mind. As he surged ahead, he grabbed a rock with both his hands and held it, groaning, until that giant wave had passed him by. So he escaped. But as the wave flowed back once more, it charged, struck, and flung him back out to sea. Just as an octopus is dragged out from its den, its suckers full of clinging pebbles, that's how his skin was scraped from its strong hands across the rocks. So that great wave engulfed him. And then unfortunate Odysseus would have perished there, something not ordained by fate, if bright-eyed Athena had not given him advice. Moving from the surf where it pounded on the shore, he swam out to sea, but kept looking at the land, hoping to come across a sloping beach somewhere or a haven from the sea. He kept swimming on until he reached the mouth of a fair flowing river, which seemed to him the finest place to go on shore. There were no rocks, and it was sheltered from the wind. Odysseus recognized the river as it flowed and prayed to it deep in his heart. "Hear me, my lord, whoever you may be. I've come to you, the answer to my many prayers, fleeing Poseidon's punishment from the deep sea. A man who visits as a wanderer commands respect, even with deathless gods, just as I've now come to your stream and knees after suffering so much. So pity me, my lord, I claim to be your suppliant." Odysseus spoke. At once the god held back his flow, checked the waves, calmed the waters up ahead of him, and brought him safely to the river mouth. Both knees bent, he had let his strong hands fall. The sea had crushed his heart. All his skin was swollen, and water flowed in streams up in his mouth and nose. He lay there out of breath, without a word, hardly moving, quite overcome with terrible exhaustion. But when he revived and spirit moved back into his heart, he untied the veil the goddess gave him and let the river take it as it flowed out to sea. A great wave carried it downstream, and then, without delay, Ino's friendly hands retrieved it. But Odysseus turned from the river, collapsed down in the rushes, and kissed life-giving earth. Then, in his anxiety, he spoke to his great heart. "What now? What's next for me? How will I end up? If I stay right here all through the wretched night, with my eye on the riverbed, I fear the bitter frost and freshly fallen dew will both combine to overcome me when, weak as I am, my spirit's breath grows faint. The river wind blows cold in early morning. But if I climb uphill to the shady woods and lie down in some thick bushes and so rid myself of cold and weariness, sweet sleep may come and overpower me, and then, I fear, I may become some wild beast's prey, its prize." He thought about what he should do and resolved to move up to the woods. Close by the water, he found a place with a wide view. So he crept in, beneath two bushes growing from a single stem. One was an olive tree, the other a wild thorn. Wet winds would not be strong enough to ever blow through one of these, nor could the bright sun's rays shine in, and rain would never penetrate. They grew so thick, all intertwined with one another. Under these Odysseus crawled, and his strong hands quickly made a spacious bed for him. For all around that spot there were fallen leaves, enough to cover 2 or 3 on a winter night, however bad the weather. When resourceful Lord Odysseus noticed that, he was delighted and lay down in the middle and piled heaps of fallen leaves around his body. just as someone on a farm without a neighbor hides a torch beneath black embers and in this way saves a spark of fire and does need to kindle it from somewhere else. That is how he spreads out the leaves on top of him. Athena poured sleep on his eyes, covering his eyelids so he could find relief, a quick respite from his exhausting troubles. Oh, nerds, that was a short one. I am sorry, but I'm going to be honest. Again, it's been a week and my voice is already going. So I'm not going to dive into the next book just yet. I don't think I could complete it for you all, so we won't try. But thank you all so much for listening, and I am really excited to be back with more of the Odyssey in just a couple weeks' time. And in the meantime, stay tuned because I will be back with the next part of Aeschylus's Agamemnon on Tuesday. I'm pretty excited for that. It's going to be really fun. Let's Talk About Myths, Baby is written and produced by me, Liv Albert. Michaela Pangowish is the Hermes to my Olympians, my incredible producer. Selection music is by Luke Chaos. The podcast is part of the Memory Collective Podcast Network, where we're trying to do good things with history. It's slow because we have no money and people have jobs and stuff, but like things are happening, and we have 2 new shows, Ancient History 101 and You Are Odysseus, and I am so excited for them, for my incredible friends who have been working on them all of this time, Alexandra Sills and Laura Jenkinson Brown, respectively, and just generally, it's exciting. We've got stuff coming. There is little bits of bright light in this utter horror show of late stage capitalism and the collapse of that empire. I am Liv and I love this shit, but you know what I love most of all? The collapse of empire. Hey, did you guys see that the factory in Ontario, California, not to be confused with the Ontario where I live, but Ontario, California. Just go ahead and find that video. Find the video of the guy who did the thing at this warehouse in Ontario, California. And eat the rich.